How to build standardized systems that actually scale without creating bureaucratic chaos. All right, last time we talked about why standardized systems scale your business. Today we're digging into the part everyone thinks they're doing well, but almost nobody actually is. We're going to break down specifics, show examples, and walk through how to build a standardized system easily, even if our business feels more like a plate spinning circus than an operation. Problem: most companies don't actually have standardized systems. They have tribal knowledge, duct taped together with good intentions. Even when leaders think they're installing systems, they're usually installing documents, not behaviors. Here's the truth: if the process isn't repeatable, teachable, and checkable, it's not a system, it's a wish. Some hard facts. In McKinsey, companies with standardized systems achieved 30% faster cycle times and up to 70% fewer defects. Gallup reports that companies lacking clear processes see 20 to 27% higher turnover because people are burned out trying to guess what good looks like. ISO studies show that standardized work improves training efficiency by up to 50%, especially onboarding. Here's a quick example. A manufacturer you worked with believed they had excellent training. Turned out that the training was basically 3 supervisors telling new hires 3 different versions of the same job. Output varied 40% shift to shift. Once standardized work was installed, variation dropped to 5% overnight. If results depend on who is working, not the system they're working in, you don't have a system. You have a lottery. Symptoms: inconsistent results everywhere. Quality throughput, customer experience, administrative work, communication, planning, everything feels like a roller coaster, managed by a blindfolded acrobat. Here's how you know you're drowning in non-standard work. Every customer gets a slightly different experience. Every team member has their own way. You can't delegate without praying. Training takes forever, and you can't scale because nothing is predictable. Here's a real-world example. You once walked into a plant where 5 identical machines were producing 5 wildly different outputs. Machine 1 was producing 3 times the scrap of machine 4. Machine 2 operator had invented their own setup method. Machine number 5's operator couldn't explain how they made adjustments. I just know what it sounds like. No standard equals no consistency. No consistency equals no scale. No scale equals you're stuck babysitting operations forever. Here's where most leaders swing and miss. A, they build huge SOP binders that nobody reads. SOPs thicker than a Thanksgiving turkey, written like a legal document. 0 visuals, 0 flow, 0 usability. B, they declare everyone needs to follow the process without actually defining it. C, they implement software way too early. Tools don't fix process. Tools make bad processes faster and harder to untangle. D, they let people work how they want because it feels empowering. That's not empowerment. That's abdication. Empowerment happens once people have a clear, stable baseline. And E, they try to solve everything at once and burn out by week 2. Listen, nobody builds standardized systems by brute force. They build them through clarity, sequencing, and iteration. So why do those other solutions rarely work? Well, first of all, A, SOPs fail because they're built like novels, not tools. People don't want to read a 12-page description of step 3. They want the steps in order, with photos, diagrams, and checkpoints. B, standardization built in a vacuum collapses in the real world. If your team didn't help build it, they won't follow it. C, software-first approaches turn into digital spaghetti. You can't automate chaos. You can only automate clarity. D, leaders confuse flexibility with freestyle. Flexibility equals adjusting intelligently once the baseline is known. Freestyle equals winging it with style and praying nobody notices. E, trying to standardize everything at once spreads your team way too thin. Standardization fails when it's not prioritized. You build standards the same way you build a house, one room at a time. You wouldn't remodel the kitchen, bathroom, living room, roof, and foundation simultaneously, unless you enjoy sleeping in the yard. Here's the big lever. Build one simple, visual, teachable system using the 4-part standardization blueprint. Then repeat it everywhere. Let's walk through it. The 4-part standardization blueprint. Part 1, define the purpose, the why and when. Every standardized system needs a simple purpose statement. This process exists to do X consistently so we can achieve Y. Here's an example. This customer handoff process exists to prevent customer confusion and reduce rework by ensuring every project starts with the same information. Part 2, map the steps, the how. This is not a novel, it's not a binder, it's a 1-page flow. Okay, sometimes 2 pages. It's visual, it's numbered, it's simple. Here's an example. Receiving material in a plant. 1, verify supplier paperwork. 2, scan into inventory. 3, check for damage. 4, label. 5, move to rack location. And 6, log completion. That's it. If you can't fit it on 1 page, it's not a process. It's a labyrinth. Part 3, define the standards. The rules and checks. This is where consistency lives. For example, for tolerances, settings, required tools, photos of good versus bad. Also checkpoints and escalation triggers. These transform tribal knowledge into shared knowledge. Here's an example. For a customer quote standard, all quotes must be sent within 48 hours. All quotes must include the cost breakdown, the lead time, and the terms. All quotes must use the approved template, and all quotes must be logged in CRM the same day. When the rules are clear, you no longer need to police behavior. It polices itself. Part 4, train, test, improve. The behavior install. You aren't done until people have been trained, have demonstrated their competence, are following the process, and are giving feedback to improve it. Here's an example. On a training cycle. 1, explain the purpose. Walk through the steps visually. Demonstrate the process. And then the learner does it while you go ahead and watch and monitor. Relatively simple, you'd think, but not every company and organization is doing it. One of the things I like to use, and I have in my templates, is what I call visual standard work instructions. Great way, we use the same template over and over and over again in a lot of the places that I've worked and a lot of the functions that I've done, because it creates a standard of how to fill these out, and then it becomes extremely easy. So go ahead and take these steps and implement them this week. See what one process you can go ahead and standardize and look at the improvement you get.